All right, buckle up for a deep dive this time into one of the most captivating stories
Okay.
in recent business history.
Oh, yeah.
The rise and fall of Theranos.
It's crazy.
We're going to be unpacking an episode of the American Scandal podcast,
Okay.
which chronicles this wild ride through Silicon Valley ambition, groundbreaking promises, and ultimately a web of deception.
It's a story that gripped the world.
Oh, yeah?
A seemingly revolutionary blood testing technology, right?
Yeah.
A charismatic leader and a company valued at billions.
Crazy.
Yet behind the dazzling facade lay a truth far more complex and unsettling.
Exactly. So for those who might not be familiar,
Right.
Theranos burst onto the scene promising to revolutionize healthcare with a technology that could run hundreds of blood tests from just a tiny drop of blood.
Wow.
It seemed almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
And as we'll discover, it was. The
No.
driving force behind Theranos was Elizabeth Holmes,
Right.
a Stanford dropout who, at just 19 years old, founded the company with a vision that captivated investors and the media alike.
Yeah.
She projected an aura of
Of
confidence and innovation
right.
that drew comparisons to Steve Jobs.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Magazine covers, giving TED Talks,
Yeah.
the whole 9 yards.
The whole thing.
And her claims about Theranos' technology were bold, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
They said their device, called the Edison, could perform complex blood tests quickly, cheaply, and with just a finger prick.
Right.
It was a game changer
It would have been
if it worked.
if it worked.
And that if is the crux of the matter.
Yeah.
What's fascinating here is how Theranos managed to operate for years under a veil of secrecy,
Right.
carefully cultivating an image of success while the reality of their technology lagged far behind.
Yeah. And that happens a lot, unfortunately.
Right. And this is where the idea of due diligence comes into play, especially when you're talking about a major partnership like the one Theranos struck with Walgreens. So this is essentially a thorough investigation to assess the validity of a company or its claims before entering into a business agreement.
Exactly.
In the podcast, we hear from Kevin Hunter,
Okay.
a consultant hired by Walgreens to do their due diligence on Theranos.
Right.
And from the outset, he encounters roadblocks.
Roadblocks. How so?
Theranos is incredibly secretive about their technology, their lab practices, basically everything.
Wow.
It's almost like they were playing this elaborate game of smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Instead of providing concrete evidence, Holmes would deflect with captivating narratives about her vision, her mission,
Right.
and the potential impact of their technology.
Sure.
One striking example from the podcast
Yeah.
is when Hunter directly asks to see the lab and witness a live demonstration of the Edison device.
Oh, wow.
Holmes initially agrees,
Okay.
but then masterfully pivots the conversation,
Oh, yeah.
steering it toward unrelated research projects and future aspirations.
So she's just kind of like talking around the question.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She was a master of redirection, using her charisma and carefully crafted stories
Yeah.
to distract from the lack of transparency.
It's really good at that.
And this raises an important question.
What's that?
How did she manage to convince so many people, including seasoned investors and business executives,
Right.
to buy into her vision without demanding more concrete proof?
Well, that's where the psychology of deception comes into play, right?
Okay.
Holmes was incredibly skilled at creating a narrative that tapped into people's desires for innovation, for a healthcare revolution.
Right.
She presented herself as a visionary, someone who was challenging the status quo, and people wanted to believe in her.
It's like the allure of the story
Huh.
overshadowed the need for tangible evidence.
Yeah.
And the more success Theranos seemed to achieve,
Right.
the more difficult it became to question the narrative.
Precisely. The company was valued at billions of dollars.
Wow.
They had partnerships with major companies like Walgreens,
Mm-hmm.
and Holmes was lauded as a genius entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
This created an aura of invincibility,
Wow.
making it even harder for those who had doubts to speak up.
And those doubts were definitely there
Oh, yeah.
within Theranos itself.
Yeah.
There were people who knew that the technology wasn't living up to the hype.
Right.
One key figure
Who's that?
is Alan Bean,
Okay.
the lab director at Theranos,
Right.
who was increasingly concerned about the accuracy and reliability of the Edison devices.
So he's seeing this firsthand.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Beam represents a critical voice of reason amidst the fervor of ambition and secrecy.
Mm-hmm.
He understood the science,
Right.
he saw the flaws firsthand,
Yeah.
And he knew the risks of deploying an unproven technology in a real-world setting.
Right, of course.
He directly urged Holmes to delay the Walgreens launch,
Okay.
arguing that the technology wasn't ready for prime time and that rushing it would jeopardize patient safety.
That's a big deal.
But Holmes, driven by her unwavering commitment to her vision, dismissed his concerns. This clash between Veeam's scientific integrity and Holmes's entrepreneurial drive highlights a fundamental tension that can exist in the world of innovation.
Yeah, I see it.
On one hand, you have the desire to push boundaries, to revolutionize industries, and to make a lasting impact.
Right.
And on the other hand, you have the responsibility to ensure that innovation is grounded in solid science, that it's safe, and that it doesn't cause harm.
For sure.
In the case of Theranos, it seems that ambition overshadowed those crucial considerations.
What's particularly unsettling is that Theranos was claiming their technology could perform over 190 different blood tests.
Wow.
When in reality, they were only capable of accurately running a small fraction of that number.
Really?
They were essentially building this elaborate facade of a fully functioning company while scrambling behind the scenes to catch up with their own promises.
It's a classic case of overpromising and underdelivering, but with potentially dire consequences. And while Holmes may have genuinely believed that they would eventually solve the technological problems, the ethical implications of putting in unproven and potentially unreliable technology into the hands of patients are incredibly serious.
Absolutely. This wasn't just about business success or failure. It was about people's health, their well-being, and their trust in the healthcare system.
And as we'll see in the next part of our deep dive, the consequences of this deception would be far-reaching and devastating.
Oh, wow.
So we've got this company with a groundbreaking promise, a charismatic leader pushing full steam ahead, and cracks starting to show both internally and from outside scrutiny.
I see.
But things are about to get even more complicated as we meet a young employee who stumbles upon a truth that he can't ignore.
I can't wait to hear about it.
Stay tuned.
As Theranos continued its meteoric rise, a storm was brewing within the company's walls.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and we're introduced to Tyler Schultz, a bright, eager Stanford graduate who joins Theranos filled with idealism.
So he's bought into the whole vision.
Totally.
Okay.
What's particularly intriguing about Tyler is his personal connection to the company.
Oh, okay.
His grandfather, George Schultz, a respected statesman and former Secretary of State, was a board member at Theranos.
Wow, so Tyler wasn't just some random employee.
Exactly.
He had a front row seat to the inner workings of the company.
Yeah.
And a deep personal stake in its success.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Initially, Tyler is swept up in the excitement,
Oh, right.
inspired by Holmes's vision and the potential to revolutionize healthcare.
I can imagine.
But his perspective shifts as he begins to observe inconsistencies in the lab.
Okay.
And overhears conversations that raise red flags about the technology's accuracy.
So, like, what kinds of things is he seeing?
Well, one incident that really shook him to the core was overhearing a discussion about deliberately ignoring quality control failures in actual patient testing.
Oh my gosh, so this wasn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet.
No.
This was about real people whose health could be impacted by these flawed results.
Imagine the weight of that realization for Tyler.
Yeah.
He's grappling with the possibility that the company he believed in, the company his own grandfather endorsed, might be putting patients at risk.
Oh, that's awful.
It's a classic whistleblower's dilemma.
Oh.
Speak up and risk everything, or stay silent and potentially allow harm to continue.
Gosh, it's incredibly gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
He's torn between loyalty to his family, his career aspirations, and this growing sense of moral obligation to expose the truth.
And remember, this is 2014, well before the Theranos scandal became public.
Right.
So Tyler is essentially going up against this seemingly invincible company with its powerful connections and a carefully crafted narrative of success.
I mean, what do you even do in that situation?
Well, he tries to address his concerns internally.
Okay.
First approaching Elizabeth Holmes directly.
Yeah, how does that go?
She deflects his questions, essentially telling him to take it up with somewhere else.
Oh, wow.
He then confides in Daniel Young, the head of biomathematics at Theranos, hoping to get some reassurance or clarification.
Right.
Instead of alleviating his fears, Young's responses raise even more red flags.
Oh, no.
He uses complex technical jargon and vague explanations that leave Tyler feeling more suspicious than ever.
So basically just trying to confuse him.
Exactly. It's a tactic we see often in situations like this.
Yeah?
Using obfuscation and appeals to authority to silence dissent.
Right. It becomes clear that Tyler can't just sit back and do nothing.
No.
He knows that speaking out could have devastating consequences for himself, his family, and his career.
For sure.
But he also can't ignore the potential harm being done to patients.
It's a testament to his courage and sense of responsibility that he chooses to take action.
Yeah.
Instead of going directly to the media, he decides to reach out to an independent authority.
Okay.
The New York State Department of Health. He files an anonymous complaint detailing the questionable lab practices he's observed at Theranos without specifically naming the company.
So he's being careful.
Yes. He's hoping to get an objective assessment from experts in the field to determine if what he's witnessed is truly illegal or just a matter of differing interpretations.
That makes sense.
The tension builds as Tyler awaits a response.
Right.
All the while continuing to work at Theranos, living with this secret that could potentially bring the whole company crashing down.
It's a David and Goliath scenario.
Totally.
A young, idealistic employee challenging a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
And then the email arrives.
Oh, God.
It's from Stephanie Schulman,
Boy.
the director of the New York State Department of Health.
Mm-hmm.
And her words confirm Tyler's worst fears.
What did she say?
She states unequivocally that the practices he described constitute a form of cheating.
Oh, wow.
A clear violation of both state and federal regulations.
So he was right all along.
This validation is crucial for Tyler. It gives him the confidence to move forward, knowing that his concerns aren't just unfounded suspicions,
Right.
but legitimate violations of the law. But it also puts him in a much more precarious position.
Right, because now he knows for sure something bad has happened.
Yeah. Now he has to decide whether to formally file a complaint.
Which would mean...
naming Theranos and risking everything.
Wow.
He's up against a formidable opponent, a company with vast resources,
Yeah.
powerful legal representation,
Mm-hmm.
and a reputation to protect. It's a moment of truth.
Totally.
A test of his convictions, and in a display of remarkable bravery, Tyler decides to take the plunge.
Wow.
He files an official complaint with the New York State Department of Health, blowing the whistle on Theranos and setting in motion a chain of events that will have far-reaching consequences.
So this single act of courage, this willingness to speak truth to power, is what cracks open the Theranos facade and allows the truth to finally start seeping out. But Tyler's journey is just one part of this complex saga. The story takes another turn as a relentless investigative journalist catches wind of the allegations and begins to dig deeper. Tyler's decision to blow the whistle was like a pebble tossed into a still pond.
Oh, yeah.
The ripples spread outward, eventually reaching John Carreyrou,
Okay.
an investigative reporter at the Wall Street Journal known for his tenacity and commitment to uncovering the truth.
So he's like the real deal.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Carreyrou initially approaches the Theranos story with a healthy dose of skepticism.
Right. I mean, why not?
I mean, this was a company lauded as a revolutionary force in healthcare,
Yeah.
backed by powerful figures,
Right.
and seemingly on a trajectory to change the world.
Yeah, you don't expect that to be a house of cards, so to speak.
But as he starts digging, interviewing former employees, and piecing together the fragmented whispers of doubt,
Yeah.
he begins to uncover a pattern of secrecy, intimidation,
Wow.
and potential fraud that's far more extensive than anyone imagined.
So it's even worse than it initially seemed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
What's striking about Carreyrou's investigation is his unwavering commitment to journalistic integrity.
That's great.
He faces immense pressure from Theranos,
Yeah.
their high-powered legal team,
Of course.
and even attempts to influence his editors to kill the story.
Wow. They're really trying to bury this.
Oh, yeah. But he persists,
Good for him.
meticulously building his case, corroborating sources,
Hmm.
and refusing to be silenced.
It's a classic example of investigative journalism at its finest.
Absolutely.
He's really doing good work there.
Carreyrou understands the weight of his responsibility,
Right.
the potential impact his reporting could have, not just on Theranos,
Yeah.
but on the lives of countless patients who might be relying on their technology.
Exactly. This is people's lives at stake.
His investigation reveals that Theranos' technology was fundamentally flawed.
Okay.
Their Edison devices weren't capable of performing the range and complexity of tests they claimed.
So they were lying.
They were relying on conventional lab equipment behind the scenes,
Right.
essentially running a bait-and-switch operation.
And remember, this wasn't just a matter of business ethics
Right.
or investor deception.
It goes way deeper.
Theranos was using this unproven technology on real patients,
Yeah.
putting their health and well-being at risk. The implications of this deception were far-reaching
Absolutely.
and potentially devastating.
Carrie Rue's reporting in the Wall Street Journal sends shockwaves through Silicon Valley
Oh, yeah.
and the healthcare industry.
Makes sense.
Regulators launch investigations, lawsuits are filed,
Yeah.
and the meticulously crafted facade of Theranos begins to crumble.
It all falls apart.
It's a swift and dramatic downfall.
Wow.
For a company that was once valued at billions of dollars and hailed as a beacon of innovation.
It's hard to believe.
Elizabeth Holmes, the once celebrated entrepreneur, is exposed as a fraud.
Wow.
Her carefully constructed persona shattered.
So what happens to her?
The consequences are severe. Holmes faces criminal charges, is convicted of multiple counts of fraud,
Wow.
and ultimately serves time in prison.
She actually went to prison.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
the company she built dissolves into nothing,
Right.
leaving behind a legacy of broken promises and a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition.
Yeah. So what can we learn from this wild ride through the heart of the Theranos scandal?
It's a potent reminder to be critical thinkers,
Mm-hmm.
to question assumptions,
Right.
and to demand transparency,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to our health and well-being.
Absolutely.
It highlights the importance of scientific rigor and ethical considerations in the pursuit of innovation.
Yeah, you can't just like throw those out the window, right?
We can't just blindly accept promises of groundbreaking technology without demanding evidence and accountability.
I think that's a good lesson for all of us.
And perhaps most importantly,
Mm-hmm.
it underscores the crucial role of whistleblowers like Tyler Schultz and investigative journalists like John Kerry Rue.
These people are really important.
They are the guardians of truth, often facing immense personal and professional risks to expose wrongdoing and hold the powerful accountable.
That's really brave of them.
The Theranos saga may be over, but the lessons it offers are timeless and essential.
Yeah.
In a world where technology is advancing at an unprecedented pace and the line between reality and fabrication can be blurred,
Right.
it's up to each of us to be informed, engaged, and discerning.
I think that's a great takeaway.
This deep dive into Theranos has been a journey through ambition, deception,
Yeah,
and the pursuit of truth.
for sure.
It's a story that reminds us that even the most captivating narratives can mask a darker reality, and that it's up to each of us to look beyond the surface and demand accountability from those who claim to be changing the world.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Theranos.
It was my pleasure.